Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on the Media Byte channel. So this video you are watching here will include spoilers for Superman 2025. I did a little small one a little while ago that was spoiler free. This is a spoiler included version of that. So, don't worry about this. This will have spoilers. So if you want a spoiler free version of this review, you can go check out that video from a few days ago, and you can find that there. This is a spoiler included review, and that's my warning for you. So if you're interested, we're going to talk about all of the goods and bads of the film now that some time has passed and I've not watched it 3 times in the last at the time of watching this. I've seen it 3 times in theaters. Still not my highest amount of times I've seen a movie in theaters, which for me is 7 times. I saw No Way Home in theaters because Spider-Man's probably my favorite character. But I saw No Way Home 7 times in theaters, and I've seen Superman 3 times. I don't think I've seen any other movie that many times in theaters, at least like brand new releases. No. Those 2 are probably the highest, at least right now. So if it's any of that, I don't know why I'm telling you that, but if you are interested in any of my podcasts and you like listening to me talk and ramble for a little while, a little bit more structured than that, it's Slash It, Exploring Cinema, Diary of an Indie Filmmaker, and podcast, Media Byte Podcast Network, and all your favorite podcast apps. So we're going to talk about the goods, the bads of the film, and all of that. So with that, I'll give a little, very, very brief, spoiler-free review before we just jump in. Writing, good. Direction is good. DC Universe interest peaked. Superman, good. Okay, so go watch the movie and then go watch the spoiler-free review if you would like, or don't watch. If you're gonna watch the movie, then watch this one. If you haven't watched the movie yet, watch that one, because you should like it. So that is the end of spoilers-free version. Spoilers are now included, so fair warning. Fair warning about all spoilers from this moment on. So let's start with something that I think is very interesting. So I originally watched this, and I noticed this the first time I watched it. I don't know why. Maybe it was because I felt it more, because I think the theater I had it in played it at the wrong aspect ratio, so I noticed it a little bit more, but it was really cool and it made it for an interesting experience, so I'll bring it up here. But I still see it a little bit, but not as much, in the apartment scene with Lois and Clark, when Clark is Clark and not Superman, when Superman is Superman but not Clark, whatever you want to call it. The camera movement in that, where it's so flowy, you feel like you're in that argument almost, and you feel the tensions building throughout those moments, where when Lois is a little bit scared of Superman, you feel that when Superman's really upset at Lois for just him trying to do good and her not understanding that, and her also him not understanding what she's talking about. There's he's very much of do good no matter what. She's very much do good as straightforward as you can be without breaking any laws or breaking any of the kind of very strict rules that journalists set in place and all that stuff. And I think that's very interesting, because I think there's a very clear difference between, there's 2 sides of the good coin. One side does good no matter what you go to Bravia and you stop them from invading Jarnapur, or you have to talk to the president, and then you have to get an invite, and then there's the steps that we all have to follow in order to get our voices heard sometimes. And I think that apartment scene really nails that fact that there's 2 sides of a good coin, and the good coin really is important to society as a whole, and not to lose any of that, fighting for that goodness, I think is really important. But about the scene, this apartment scene, I think there's the way the characters have actual conversations in this movie is absolutely, I never felt, okay, that is something I thought was really, 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 really good about this movie, is I thought this was one of the first superhero movies I've seen in a long time. I'm not going to name names, But I felt like this Superman movie, I felt like the characters were having conversations that were not meant to forward the plot directly. Like, of course, certain things get you there, but like the apartment scene, that is not necessarily 100% just to forward the plot. Of course, it forwards the plot a little bit. That's the point of every scene. But it's not like, okay, now this is the part where we all dress up and now we go fight the bad guy. This was like a emotional building scene that you don't really see all that often in a lot of superhero movies like this. Something about it I just felt so enthralled by, because you don't see that kind of thing in any superhero movies, and that alone makes me really, really, really excited for where this universe goes. Because if we can make a franchise of good characters and good movies, but good movies because they're good movies, not just because they're good comic book movies, which I think there is a difference, and you have to kind of like separate them, right? Like, I really liked No Way Home, but that's, you compare that to a different movie, and they're not comparable, right? So you're putting it in its genre. I think Superman's one of the best comic book movies, at least one of the best in the last 10 years, because there's an actual layer of filmmaking to this movie that doesn't exist in a lot of other other superhero movies I've watched. Not saying all of them, and I'm not even saying that there's not that in a lot of movies, especially beginning, I would argue all the way up until Endgame with Marvel movies. All of those have that, what I'm talking about, where there's like a clear and concise motive to everything, but also there's very many parts in those movies that just let the characters breathe and exist for the purposes of existing and creating characters. And I think that's so important to allowing you to grow with these characters. I think other things I really, really like about this movie a lot is I really like that when Superman gets really upset, like when he gets upset, so there's one scene where he says #supershit, and that scene is different. But when he's like upset, he just says things like darn or dang it or ow. Like, he doesn't really add a lot of he doesn't curse very much. And I think that is so important and intrinsical to his character that he wouldn't, because he would want kids to feel safe around him. And I don't know. I feel like that's such an intrinsical part of his character, is he wants people to feel safe around him, and so he doesn't curse. And he's such a symbol of good and hope in this movie that I think there is okay, I'll be honest, I cried like 4 or 5 times in this movie, and it's because there is such a layer of hope in this movie, and good, and what it means to be a good human is intrinsical, like, tied to this film, especially the end where he talks to Lex Luthor, and he mentions that about, like, he talks a lot about how goodness and decency is not what is the word I'm looking for? It's not something to be ignored, because it's very important that we all try our best to be as good and hopeful and kind and nice as we can, because we're all just living our lives the best we can. We don't know anything better than anybody else, and we're all trying to exist and live in the world that we do. And I think that's so important to all of this movie, is that idea. Goodness and kindness exist, and they thrive, and they're full of hope and love. And that is something that I think is so vitally important to this movie, that is so beyond my comprehension about everything about this movie. Really, to be honest with you, I there's such that layer of good and hope is played perfectly through this film, and You know, when the world looks like it's not going that way, a movie like this is so needed because it reminds you that the people around you need you to be nice and kind. You can't change the world. You alone as a singular human being cannot make the bad of the world go away. You can. The only thing you can do is make the badness of the circles around you better. That's all you can do. Live every day of trying to make yourself feel better. Make the people around you feel better. Do the things that make you happy and make you feel good. And try to let the things that are going the wrong way fade off your back, because you can't control a lot of things, and in 50, 60, 70 years you are not going to remember them, and on your deathbed the only thing you'll remember is things you won't even have the opportunity to know. The butterfly effect is so important. The things that you do to the people around you change people's brains. They make people think. They make people think realistically and make people think happy and good thoughts. And all it takes is holding the door for someone. Hold the door for somebody. Or, you know, say, nice shirt. Because you can save lives doing that. And you might not know. You probably won't know. But you could. And, you know, don't be afraid to give somebody $1 that you know you're going to just lose in the car seats anyways. Give somebody $1 they ask for. You're not gonna use that $1. You know exactly what I'm talking about. There's probably $2 in your couch, in your seats right now, that because they were in your dash and you just forgot about them and then ignored them. Of course, if you don't have money, that's, you know, it's fine. But you know what I'm saying. Like, don't be afraid to be a nice person to people, because you can change people's lives by one action. And that is the point of this movie, is one single action can change your world. We're all not Superman, but you can change your world with one action. And that is what this movie is telling us. And that is something that's very, very important to all of us right now in this moment, is to take care of the people that you can take care of and be honest, feel emotions, cry if you need to. Don't hide those things. But also realize that the people around you need you, and you need the people around you. Be nice to them. Be kind to them. Don't take it out on them, because they're also in the world that you're in. And that is, again, that's what this movie is talking about. Superman in this movie is a symbol of being that good and that hope in the world, and trying your hardest to show people that that good and that hope is what the world needs from you. And I guess the decency and the humanity that is in this movie is so important. It's so genuine, I think, is what makes this movie so good, is the genuineness of this film. I'm getting you can't see, but I'm getting goosebumps on my hairs are sticking up, because there's such a genuineness to this movie that I can't even describe. If you just don't care about spoilers and you're watching this, honestly, I think this is one of the best comic book movies, probably because of that. It's probably my favorite Superman movie. First off, it's the only one I've ever seen in theaters besides Batman vs. Superman. And I don't even think I saw Man of Steel in theaters. I just saw Batman vs. Superman. And I don't think I watched Justice League in theaters either. But this is my favorite because Superman is a good and hope and kindness and all that stuff. So I really just can't believe that we got this movie the way we did, because it's so awesome. So with that, we're going to skip forward a little bit and talk about Mr. Terrific, who is absolutely incredible in this movie. He is so awesome in this movie. I just honestly can't believe that his character and oh my lord, everything about him, and just oh my lord, I love Mr. Terrific so much. It's over there, but I have all of the action figures for Mr. Terrific, and then I have Superman, and I'm looking for Guy Gardner, and I'm looking for Hawkgirl. But I love Mr. Terrific's character. One of my favorite scenes in this movie is the scene when they go and they find the DNA, and they like, cause he's got like the tracking things for his nanites, I think is what he called it, in Superman's bloodstream, which is, we're gonna see how that plays later on. But basically, he figures out where Superman was led to, right? And so he figures out where Superman was led to, and they go there, and this is where all of Lex Luthor's like Planet Watch people are. Which Planet Watch is something that Lex Luthor has made because he's trying to convince the government to let him take over Superman, basically capture him, kill him, you know, win over Superman. And he does get kind of pretty successful in that aspect. It's not until like the last half of the movie where that starts to go downhill. She's pretty successful at that part, but either way, Mr. Terrific and Lois Lane figure out where they're going, where Superman went, which is when he went into the pocket dimension, and all that fun stuff. But basically, you figure out that he's going into the pocket dimension, and then all of Lex Luthor's people don't like that Mr. Terrific and Lois Lane are trying to find that, and they know that they're there, and then they're trying to kill him. But basically, he puts down one of his T-spheres, and puts a bubble around Lois, and he basically just completely kills all the people that are fighting him around her while she's protected in this bubble. While this one of their great, which we haven't talked about yet, but there's a great musical cue that plays in this scene, and it's stuck in my head. And then there's one more that plays stuck in my head too. I absolutely love that scene. I think there's such a, it's so cool, I think is what that scene is. That scene is just so cool. My favorite part is he kills a bunch of people and he goes to one side of the bubble, and then he grabs on to one of the T-spheres and he flies over the bubble, like the camera, like you see her, and then it kind of goes like this as he goes up and over the bubble, and that's so awesome. And she's in the bubble. And something I thought was really cool is you hear the musical cue on the radio before they start fighting, and there's a girl and like a woman in a tent listening to the song. And I saw this online somewhere, and it makes sense to me, is that Mr. Terrific took and found out he found that the music was playing, and then decided to pump that into the bubble so that way Lois wouldn't hear all of the stuff that was happening in outside around him, like trying to soothe her a little bit by not having her have to hear all the noises that were going on outside. Which, because the second that the bubble disappears, the music fades out like really quickly. And I love that. Just that whole scene is so awesome. Other thing that I want to mention is I absolutely love Krypto in this movie. I think Krypto is incredible in this movie. I knew just by his existence that Lex Luthor was going to grab and kidnap Krypto, just because it's a perfect way to, like, you know, make somebody immediately hate Lex Luthor, because Krypto's adorable, like absolutely adorable, and it makes sense why Krypto would be upset at, you know, why Superman would be wanting to go find Krypto. It's perfectly fine use, but Krypto's really funny in this movie. He's really adorable, and the fact that it's you see Supergirl come and retrieve Krypto is really awesome. And I'm excited to see where that goes next. Next year on July 11th, I'm pretty sure Supergirl's coming out exactly a year from when this movie came out, which is awesome. So then, you know, the president of Baravia also does a great job at, you know, being evil, feeling a little evil, but not like over the top. Nothing that doesn't exist and isn't logical, up until a point where then he's in a pocket dimension with Lex Luthor, and that part is not supposed to feel real. But he felt like a president of a country that's trying to invade another country. It's fine. Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, awesome. Haircut, awesome. I think he's really funny in this movie. To mention that talking about the humor in this movie, I think the humor in this movie is so awesome because it's not like setup, punchline, setup, punchline. The way people aren't knowledgeably making jokes that way. Whereas in some Marvel movies, it's very much like the characters themselves know they're telling a funny joke, and that's the only reason they're saying these lines. Some of the lines in Superman, they're just lines, but the way that they say the lines are funny, and the characters don't know that they're being funny. And that is what makes these jokes in this movie work so much better than some of those jokes in some Marvel movies. So there's Guy Gardner, incredible, really funny. I love the way his use is in this movie, especially when he goes and saves, when the Bravia does go to fight Jarnpur, when they do invade, because they like tricked Superman into being somewhere else, and so they can invade Jarnpur because Lex Luthor wants to fight that, invade there and take that part over. Sorry if you heard the dogs. I can't do much about that, but because I'm doing a kind of a raw little review here, so if you heard that, that's my apologies. But because when Bravia goes to attack Jarnpur, and then Guy Gardner and the Justice Gang come and they fight Bravia back, and basically Bravia just immediately disperses. I think that whole scene is awesome. How its middle finger's coming up out of the sky and hammers smashing things. I love that scene, that whole scene, because that's the scene where the little boy makes the makeshift Superman logo and holds it up on the flag. Again, chills. Literally chills, because I don't know. I think there's something so just special about those moments in this movie, and honestly, my only issue is sometimes I wish that Superman was able to come and help save them, just because they call for him. But I understand why that didn't happen, but I do wish that would have happened. Just because I think it leaves a little bit of a sad, I get really emotional in that moment, and then Superman doesn't come and save them, and I feel like it makes me feel a little unsatisfied. This last time I watched it, which was literally yesterday, I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel as unsatisfied. I felt a little bit better about it. But yeah, basically, I just thought that was a little moment I didn't think was the best. I wish that Superman had come, but it also doesn't make sense story-wise. Superman would be able to get there in time before Bravia started fighting, because of where he was at in that moment, and that's totally normal. I just wish that Superman was able to save him. But then, I guess that plays into the plot of goodness is all of humanity. It's not just one person. And that's a way of looking at it, I guess. But, so, first thing, and then I have another thing to say. I think something I really liked about this movie a lot was that I like that I didn't feel like it was an origin story, because it starts three decades ago, 3 years ago, 3 months ago, 3 days ago, 3 seconds ago, whatever, right? 3 hours ago, whatever. And I like that, because I like that this feels like you're coming in at comic book 4 of a line, and you already skipped past the parts that you already know about. We already know who Superman is. We don't have to know why he has powers. We just expect him to have powers because you tell us he has powers. And I think that works so well for this movie, because you're just there. You're in it, and you don't have to worry about setting up everything all the time. Getting them to feel like they have characters without needing him to, I don't know, without having him feel like, I don't know, having him not feel like you're destroying everything the whole time, I think works very well for this. There's such a love for everything in this movie, and I think the number one thing I really like is that the origin story part of this isn't as he crushes, like they tell you that, but it's part of the story, but it's part of the story as a secondary plot thing. It's not the main part. Like, we don't watch him as a baby crash into Earth and then all that stuff. It just happens. Like, we just know that happens, and I think that is really awesome. The other thing too is this movie has a lot of characters. It has Hawkgirl, which I didn't even have a chance to mention because she's also absolutely sick. The whole Justice Gang is sick. Hawkgirl, I love Hawkgirl in this movie. She grabs the president of Baravia and like throws him off. Like, he takes her and grabs her. She takes him and grabs him and like flies over Baravia, I guess, and then drops him. But then it cuts. He falls and it cuts, and then somebody drops like an Alka-Seltzer, so seltzer thing, into water. And that little gag makes me laugh really hard. It makes Alex laugh really hard, but then nobody in the theater laughs at it. I don't know why, but I find that really funny. Maybe I'm weird, but I just thought that scene was really, really funny. And Lex Luthor is evil. Lex Luthor is just evil. He's just a bad guy. And, you know, he's pretty accurate to the way he would be. He's just mean. He's just bad. And there's nothing wrong with that. He's just mean and bad. And I think that's something so special. Is he's just evil. But he's also human, and you can tell that that's part of it. Like, he's just obsessed. I don't know. He's just it's so special. And I want to talk about the music in this movie. The score is like day one, buy it on vinyl score. Listen to it all the time. Score. I already added it on Apple Music. All of that is great. The music in this movie is absolutely incredible. I cannot tell you this. The music in this is just, it's so good. It's so good. And then the music cues in this movie, like the needle drops in this movie, are better, almost. The song that plays at the very end, Punk Rocker. I'm a punk rocker, yes I am. Punk rocker because I think they're called the Teddy Bears. I'm pretty sure it's their name of their band. And so let's talk about the ending and talk about that. So Lois Lane talks about being punk rock, and then she tells Superman that she's not punk rock, that he's not punk rock. Like, you're not punk rock at all. And then basically Lois Lane, Superman's like, well, maybe being nice is punk rock. Maybe that's what that is. Maybe that is punk rock, right? Like, maybe it is punk rock. Maybe that's the point of it. And I don't know. I think that's something so special. But so the ending of this movie is, in the first part, he says, you go into the Fortress of Solitude, right? And you find out that basically he has to, he got injured at the very beginning of the movie, and he has the message from his parents that they sent him. It's broke, it's damaged, because it's part of the story later on, that Lex Luthor finds it, and then they told him that he was gonna rule over Earth, and then Lex Luthor tells everyone that, and then they all get mad, and that's why they go to Planet Watch, and they're able to capture him. And then the rest of the movie. So I just love that whole scene. That whole part is just awesome. Just the way everything ties into everything is just so cool. But basically, the message at the beginning is of his parents from Krypton, and they mentioned him as Kal-El and all that stuff, and it's in Kryptonian, but how am I trying to say this? So it gets damaged and all that stuff, and then at the end, after he kind of goes through a transformation almost of becoming more human, and you kind of fully understand him as human. So the number one thing is he says that the message soothes him, and it doesn't soothe him, because when he gets damaged, he has to turn the sun, and the sun makes him scream and yell, and he's full in agony because of the sun hurting him. And at the end of the movie, when it's the videos of him as a kid on Earth with Ma and Pa Kent, who are really awesome in this movie, I like them a lot. it makes me tear up a little bit. It's all the videos of all of them doing things as a kids and running through cornfields and Christmas and birthdays and just all that stuff. And so when he turns the Fortress of Solitude turns because he's just getting healed again, when he feels the sun on him, he smiles because the videos of Ma and Pa Kent in his childhood actually did soothe him, and he actually is soothed by that. And I don't know, I try not to cry, so I thought that was so important, so not something you'd see. There's such a thematic just perfection to that. I don't know, it touches me in a very deep way, because you expect it to be his parents again, like his parents from Krypton, but it's his parents from Earth. I don't know, it just touches me in such a deep way. But yeah, so I loved this movie. I'm just gonna end it there. I could do this for another hour, just talking about this movie. There's so much more, so much to this movie that I just could talk about for hours and hours and hours. I loved it. I'll probably end up seeing it at least one more time in theaters before it goes away. I liked it a lot. I'm very excited for where these movies go from now, because there's a real future here, and we'll be talking about these movies in 10 years. So whatever happens, but I think if this is all I got from all of DC's universe, I would be happy. So that's my saying. I hope when Batman comes out, I hope Batman's really good too. I hope that Supergirl's really good. I have faith in that one, and I have faith in Batman, and I have faith in Clayface, and then everything else that will come afterwards. So yeah, so that's it for today. Thank you for listening and rambling. If you've heard me ramble and you listen to all this, please let me know, because I love talking about this. I love doing these little reviews and things, so I loved this. I hope you did too. And yeah, so I'm not going to plug everything, because if you've watched this far, you probably know where a lot of stuff is. You can find all the links in the description down below. And yeah, so thank you. And if this movie touched you in a deep way, like, it's trying to tell you something about humanity, and a lot of people are going to dismiss this movie because it's a comic book movie, and that part is fine. If you're going to do that, but if you've watched this movie, don't let the themes of the movie be overshadowed by that, because there is a very genuine, there's an actual theme to this movie, because this is not just a good comic book movie. This is a good movie. So with that, I'll end it, and I will see you in the next one, and it'll be much shorter than this. So with that, see you in the next one. Peace.